Scott McNair, Injury Attorneys, we fight for the win.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Overruled podcast, brought to you by the Scott McNair Law Firm. I'm your host, David Vignair. I'm flying solo today. I've been without Brad for a while. Hopefully, I don't have a heart attack because the plane will crash. There's no co-pilot. But I do have a great co-guest today. The worst joke ever. What the hell is wrong with me? One of my good friends through the Fireproof organization, Chris Keller with Keller Swan Injury Lawyers, based out of Florida. I've gotten to know Chris pretty recently through Fireproof over the last year, and I wanted to welcome you, Chris, to the Overruled podcast. Thank you for being with us.
David, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I've been admiring everything that you're doing with marketing, and I always get to learn from you, so to be on your podcast is a real privilege.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. For those of you, I want to say this before I kind of let you introduce yourself to our guest, Chris. One of the biggest things I noticed about Chris when I met him is his humility. Very humble and great guy, and that says something about him, I think, because he's grown an incredible firm, and I can't wait to get in to talk about his firm. But first, Chris, I was hoping you could introduce yourself to all of our guests and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So for those who don't know me, my name is Chris Keller, and I'm the CEO and founder of Keller Swan Injury Attorneys here in South Florida, based in South Florida. Our firm has grown recently over the last 2 years to include Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Kentucky, Ohio, and Arizona. We have about 80 employees stretched across, actually international now because we use a lot of VAs. Virtual assistants. And so that's it. Married, I got 3 kids, 9, 6, and 5. So between work and growing a firm and taking care of my family, I'm a busy guy.
That's incredible. So I was in research for the show, Chris. I was telling you before we jumped on the air. I was blown away. I didn't know y'all were practicing in 6 different states, but I think it's 8. How many states are y'all in?
So now we're in, again, Tennessee, Georgia. We have some physical locations there and a physical location in Florida. But we also practice in Mississippi and Arkansas, Ohio, Kentucky, and Arizona. That's our main locations that we're practicing.
But y'all are based out of Florida, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, that's where the firm started. That's kind of our base and where we've had the most success. And now moving into some other areas. Georgia's a big state for us. Tennessee, other states, not quite there yet, but we're working on it. Trying to grow.
Okay, so tell our listeners, if they see you now, you're this, and we're going to get into the firm and the size of the firm and how it's grown. But how do you go? Tell us about your professional experience. How do you go from getting out of law school, just learning how to practice, and to the point that you are today?
Yeah, so my dad's an attorney and practiced for 40 plus years. He had his own firm in Southeast Kentucky. He practiced insurance defense. And his firm was, 15 to 20 people. And I just watched my dad work extremely hard for many years. And I thought, I never want to be a business owner. I'm fine I'm just fine being an employee and going to work, because I just saw the amount of time that my dad spent. So many nights he'd be at the office at 9 and 10 o'clock. He was there on Saturdays and Sundays. I grew up going to the office with him. I grew up going with him across the state of Kentucky for court hearings and trials. And so I just saw that and I was like, man, my dad used to tell me, he got nothing done work-wise between 8 and 5 because he had to run the firm. And so all the time they had to spend on cases was before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m. or on the weekends. And I was like, man, that doesn't sound like, a lot of fun, right?
No.
And so I went to law school because I wanted to be a prosecutor. That was really what was in my heart, is I just loved crime and punishment. I really wanted to be a police officer or an FBI agent, but my mom didn't think having a gun in my hand was a good idea, I guess. So I ended up in law school, and the cool thing about being a prosecutor was I got to work side by side with law enforcement. I got to go out to crime scenes and got to help get warrants and do a lot of cool things. I tried over 150 jury trials as a prosecutor. I tried 7 first-degree murder trials. And so that was my passion.
Wow.
And then I got a call one day that said, hey, do you want to come interview at this personal injury firm? And I was like, well, I didn't apply. I was like, I'm not really looking for a job. I'm pretty good where I'm at. But I went, took the interview, and next thing you know, I started in personal injury, which was pretty cool because I got to still help people, people who were victims. And, it was kind of what I did as a prosecutor. I worked with a lot of victims. A lot of my cases had victims. And so, it was kind of a natural fit. And I worked in personal injury for a firm here in South Florida. It's been around for 40 plus years for, 7 years, and got a lot of really good experience and learned about networking and marketing and bringing in cases. They're a firm that's really been involved in the community and really kind of learned about community engagement and community involvement. And decided to hang my own shingle. I guess that secret entrepreneur inside me was calling. But when I did it, I had no idea what I was doing. David, like I think so many of us, I started and thought, we'll figure it out. It can't be that hard, right? We'll figure it out. Struggled through it for a few years. I was at a summit recently and I was speaking and I told the crowd, I said, hey, look, I sat where you guys sat 6 years ago, and had I actually listened, had I had an open mind then, I would have avoided a lot of mistakes. I said, I listened to a lot of these speakers this morning before me, and I said, yep, did that. Yep, made that mistake. Oh yes, messed that up.
We all have a graveyard of the mistakes that we've all screwed up along the way, right? I mean, we've done it all. And I bet if me and you really dug into it, we'd have a lot of the same ones.
We all fall into the same traps. And so really it was the last 2 years, coming up on 3 years, that really we had the most growth in our business. And that was really thanks to business coaching. I joined a business coaching program, and my mind was ready. I was ready to make the change. I was ready to have that mindset shift. And really where it came from for me was the Power Five: your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial well-being. And that was kind of what the light switch that switched for me. And from there, we really started growing, and that really came from understanding and appreciating that I was the bottleneck. I was the reason why the firm wasn't growing, because I could only take it so far if I had to do everything. I was the director of HR, I was the director of finance, I was the director of operations, I was the receptionist, I was the trash man. I did it all. So when you're trying to do it all, it's hard. And so once I kind of got out of the way, and the firm really kind of took off, and we started having a lot of success.
You mentioned mindset, Chris, and I think there's a reason that I was like thinking in my head when you said that. I'm like, I knew I liked this guy when I met him, because I think one of my frustrations right now is I feel like in the lawyer world, and especially in the lawyer business world, or maybe it's more accepted in the lawyer business world that me and you kind of pseudo live in, right? Is a lot of lawyers, when I say like the most important thing you can do is work on your mindset, they kind of like, or this is shoo-she crap. Like, I don't need to worry about this. I'm a litigator. I'm a lawyer. But for me, 3 years ago, started listening to Ben Glass's podcast and being involved in GLM. Ben, I think, is a fantastic mindset person. He's a wonderful man. And I think he's adopted 3 kids, got 9 children, just an incredible person. And he really taught me to start thinking differently and got me into mindset. And I have seen like exponential benefits in my personal and professional life. I read a new book every month on it. Like, I'm always doing a mindset book, and I'm always like sharpening it and working on it. And I'm just in a zone with everything professionally because of it, and I know that about you. So I'm curious on your perspective on the power of it, the importance of it, and what do you do to continue to work on it and sharpen your own mindset?
Well, David, it's honestly the most important thing. I think what happens for attorneys is that we think we're lawyers first and not business owners. We have this bar license that allows us to practice and go in front of a judge, and so that's our thing, right? That's our ticket. And so we go into owning our firm, but we're still working. Kind of like my dad, he had to run the business from 8 to 5, but he still handled cases. So he was still working nonstop. And I think that was the mentality, is that you had to work 80, 90 hours a week, whatever it is. You're just constantly just work. And you didn't have time for the mindset. You didn't have time for health and wellness, because you literally were just working all day. You were trying to keep the business going, plus keep your cases going. And it's just hard. And so, that's what I kind of grew up in with, around my dad. And then when I got into private practice, all the attorneys that I worked for, the owner shareholders, still had caseloads. They were still going to court. They were still trying cases. They were still taking depositions. And so that's just what I had always seen and always known as that owner operator, kind of model. And, when I kind of saw this CEO model, I was like, who are these guys? Think they are, what is this? And so, kind of get my eyes open to that and understanding that, I have a business to run and I can't do it all. I can't be the best attorney and go crush it in the courtroom for my clients and also be the absolute best business owner. It's really tough to do both, I think. And so for me, really, I talked you through, is that Power 5, that mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial well-being. When I went through that exercise and I had to grade myself on that scale of 1 to 10 in those areas and say, where was I? Financially, it was the best. I was working my ass off all day, every day, to build a firm, and we were doing great. I was making, really good money and, was able to buy nice things. It was great and support my family, but I was really struggling mentally, emotionally, physically. I was overweight, just unhappy in pretty much all aspects of my life. I was unhappy, but I had money, I had money. So, I realized, I said, look, this is not a good way to live, and I've got to do something about it. And so for me, for me, it was the physical journey. You can see behind me, I did a half Ironman back in July. I'm getting ready to do my first full Ironman. And those were things that for me, were impossible. I'm telling you, like, absolutely impossible. I've lost over 50 pounds. I've ran multiple marathons. I just finished my second marathon, which was the Atlanta Marathon. I was sub 4 hours on my second marathon. I cut over an hour off my time from my first marathon. And it really that's all about mental. So I started getting up at 5 a.m. and part of the 5 a.m. club. This morning I was on with a couple of my buddies riding the Peloton.
Miles is pointing at me. Me too. He knows. I'm up at 5 every morning. That's
where it gets done, man. That's where you get that mental work done. So I get up and I pray, I journal, I read my Bible, I read a book too, whatever I'm reading at the time. I switch between personal health and wellness books or business books, but I'm constantly learning and feeding my mind. I sit in silence, I meditate, giving me that time to really clear my head before the world kind of wakes up, right? All that time. I don't look at my phone. My rule is I don't look at my phone at all. I don't want to see what I may have missed from the night before. I don't get on social media. I don't want anything to affect me when I wake up, and then I'm out the door to run. I run 4 days a week. I run with a buddy of mine who's an attorney here in town, and him and I run a lot. I'm at the gym with a trainer 2 days a week. I'm swimming 3 days a week with and 1 day with a swim coach.
Holy shit!
And then I'm biking, so nonstop. But it's in those moments in the steam room, in the cold plunge, that I'm thinking about my business too. It's allowed me to get that place, that freedom, that away from the cell phone, away from the distractions, to focus in on, hey, what do I want to do that's going to move this business forward? What needs to happen in my business that's going to move this business forward? And then also, allowing business coaches in, and being able to, be in the network that we are, has really helped to grow the business, because now I have a mentor, I have a resource, I have someone to go ask and say, hey, here's my challenge, here's my struggle. And, they guide me through it.
Yeah, incredible. I just think the end of it too, Chris, is irrespective. Somebody's going to hear everything you do and be like, holy crap, like I just did. I was like, holy shit, audibly. But, if you just do something, is my belief, like if you get up early, you get some exercise going, you really get in that mentality, it just puts your body in a better place to make decisions. And like the way Ben Glass says it, I think was a great way, is like, your business is only going to go as far as you can take it, as far as the thing between your 2 ears can take it. And like, you are the racehorse. Like, if you owned a racehorse, would you feed it freaking pork and beans and shitty meat, or would you feed it good food and make sure it exercises so it can win a race if you invest in a racehorse? And the way he explained that just hit me like a brick, and I was like, I got to start taking care of myself. I got to grow this business. I can't, like, I had the same journey as you. It's like, great, I'm making a lot of money, but everything else in my life sucks because I'm working 90 hours a week, going home, getting ready for depositions in the evening. You know what I mean? We all live that journey. So it's great to hear you have kind of going through a lot of the same things as me, but I want to make sure we talk about the firm. How big is the firm now? And you said the growth I know the growth has been exponential for you over the last 3 years. So can you kind of take us through that growth and where y'all are now?
Yeah. So when I got into business coaching, November 2022 is when I signed up for my first business coaching class. And it really, in March of 2023 is when we started going through workshops and kind of learning. And so that's when, it took some time, right? You gotta learn a little bit. You gotta still kind of work through some of the challenges and realize, okay, this is the right way. And so it took some time that year, 2023, really kind of learning. Then last year, 2024, we just had that exponential growth. So in November of 2022, we're like 18, 19 people. At the end of last year, we're around 76.
Wow.
We added 38 people last year. And so it's just
few additions,
just a few, just a couple. And so, and one place we made it on was the non-revenue producing side, which is really important too. Kind of elevating people so I went through one of the books that I love is Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. And so one of the things I had to do was go through that exercise, the 1, 2, 3s, and say, okay, what am I good at and what do I enjoy doing? What am I good at but don't necessarily enjoy? And what am I really terrible at and don't enjoy at all, right? And I realized that in my days, and this is that mindset thing as well, I realized that most of my days were spent in 3s. I was doing things that I didn't enjoy and I wasn't good at. And so I'm like, why am I so unhappy? I can't understand that when I go home at night, I'm not happy.
I figured it out, dummy. I'm doing a bunch of stuff I don't enjoy and I'm not good at.
So one of those things was, as bad as it sounds, is HR. Like I hate that knock on the door. Like, hey, do you have a moment? Sure. I'm sure this is going to go well, right? And so I hated those kind of things, right? And so one of the first things I did was get a director of HR, get someone in that could kind of help on that. I was spending time writing our employee manual, and I remember like when we were small, one of our paralegals was going to go out on maternity leave. But what's your maternity policy? I was like, that's a good question. I guess I need one of those. So,
we have lived a shared journey, Chris. I think one morning is another story for me, because HR is like I couldn't think of anything I dislike more. But in one morning, I remember I was like, there must be a different way. It was around the time that I was like, I got to get out of a lot of this stuff. I was like in the bathroom early in the morning. I got a text message from a paralegal. One of her kids threw up and this whatever. Could she come in an hour later? And I was just like, there's got to be a better way for this. I don't want to ever have to get this text message to start my morning off again. But yeah, I completely relate on the HR. And so has a lot of the ramp up been in your administrative departments that support the legal production teams?
So that was the initial, right? Get a director of operations in, because also what I realized is that I am that visionary leader. I'm not so great at the integrating role. And so I always was that I would push the ball down the field to the 80-yard line, the 90-yard line, but just couldn't kind of get it over the finish line, right? I'd go on to the next big project. I was that big thinker. So I had the big idea. I'm like, this is amazing. Let's go. We do all this hard work. We get it there. And then I'm on to the next big idea. And meanwhile, there's that last 10 yards to go that, just doesn't get done. And then it's, becomes sloppy. So I got somebody to do that. So that was a lot of the investment. But then with that came more cases. Because, I was freeing up my time to go out market, network, get more cases. And so then we started ramping up cases. So to kind of give you an idea, we were probably signing up, 50 to 60 cases a month back then. Now a slow month for us is about 150. So we're 150 to 200 a month, and this month we should cross that 200 cases a month threshold. And so we've
congratulations, that's incredible, Chris.
So with with getting myself out of the way and making some investments in the operational side, freed us up to do more of the marketing network and bring in more cases. Then what happens is now you have to hire more paralegals, more attorneys, and
somebody explained it recently, Chris, which is now I think about it, and whenever I'm like get anxiety, because now we have this, we're not nearly as big as y'all. It's a case value, but we're really growing right fast. And it's like somebody explained it the other day, and the way I like calm my anxiety about it all now, it's like it's kind of like a football game. Marketing punts to admin and operations, then operations gets bigger and it punts to marketing, and then they go get more cases and they punt the ball back, and it's like you're punting the ball back and forth, right?
Yeah, and you also always have that that clash where it's like, hey, you got to slow down marketing, stop the cases, and then the market's like, no, we need more cases, push, and operations like, no. So we're constantly fighting that battle too. So it's
It's incredible. You should be, I know you're very proud of your team, and it's unbelievable how rapidly y'all have grown. It obviously speaks to the quality of the attorneys and the team there. But what would you say, if you could, was one of the first one or two main reasons that y'all have grown so rapidly?
So one of the big things, and honestly, was hiring an attorney to come in and take over my caseload. When I was trying to manage 150 cases on my own, going to court, preparing for depositions, doing recorded statements, all those kinds of things, I just didn't have time to focus on the business. And so I hired someone who, frankly, is a better attorney than I am. I've tried over 200 jury trials. I've gotten 7-figure verdicts. I've done a lot of stuff, but he's frankly a better attorney than me. I always tell people, when you hire him, you actually got the better attorney. So, cause he's that guy, right? He's going to prepare more for the defendant driver depot than I am. And he's going to leave no stone unturned, and he's going to do a great job. So, finding someone like him to come in and take over the caseload, to free me up, to allow me to focus on the business and really kind of go into that CEO role. I don't like to say CEO yet, but the head of the business, the leader of the business, the visionary of the business. That was one of the big things that had to happen. I had to be able to free myself up to work on the business versus in the business. So. Right.
Well, one of the things too I noticed about the firm, Chris, was the community involvement. I mean, Jupiter Beach cleanup. You did a Hurricane Ian food drive. I think y'all served 400,000 meals. Unbelievable. Y'all do Thanksgiving meals, Toys for Tots. Y'all have like 10 or 15. I was blown away how much stuff y'all do in the community. Can you talk about the importance of that to you, both professionally and personally, and how that affects the culture of the firm with your team?
One thing I'll talk about really was Project Backpack, which I know you're aware of. It started with the fireproof coach community, and but I don't ever like to do something that I don't have like some passion for or some connection or nexus to. I don't want to just go do Project Backpack because, somebody else did it and it sounds cool. Right. Let's go do that. So, I had to look at it and say, when I look at community involvement, is what are the things that I'm passionate about that I want to be involved in? And so my mom was a school teacher. She taught school for over 20 years. She was a 6th, 7th, 8th grade history teacher. She'd also had to do science and other subjects at the time during school. But, my mom was a school teacher. And so, I went to the same school that she taught at. And saw my mom doing all the after school activities. She was the cheerleading coach, and she was the tutor. She was the 4-H leader. She was, all of it. She was just in school. And I saw her, I saw kids struggle. I grew up in Southeast Kentucky, a very impoverished area of the country, and where she taught was a school district that was poor. And so kids didn't have a lot. And my mom and dad always tried to provide for other families and do that. And so Project Backpack was one of those marketing or community events that I heard about, and I was drawn to it immediately. I was like, this is something I can get behind, right? I have this connection to it. And, I lost my mom 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago. And it was for me a way. Thanks. And so it was a way for me to kind of honor my mom and kind of feel that connection, that relationship. Like, look, I'm doing something good in the community and something my mom would be behind. So this will be our 2nd annual. We did it last year. This year, we're actually going to host it here at our office. We've done a lot of marketing surrounding it to bring people here. We're going to have bounce houses and food trucks, make it really a community event. And so, but to get my staff involved, to have them be a part of it, to serve the community, a big part for me now is service. How can we serve? And too often, in time, it was like take, but not really give. Or the way I would, do it before the mindset shift was just write a check. I can just write a check. Yeah. I don't have to show up. I don't have to do the heavy lifting. Just write a check. See, I did my part. I wrote a check. But there's something different about showing up. There's something different about serving. There's something different about actually being a part of it. And that's been the big change for us, is that we show up for these community events now. We don't just write a check. Yes, we still write a check, but we also show up. We're there to be a part of the community, to be a resource, to lend a helping hand. And then, that obviously has done a lot for our firm culture. That's who we are. And that's who the people around us become. And then the impact that we can have. It's just such a huge impact that we can have once everybody buys into that. So hopefully
that's amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And I love how you tied in mindset to that, Chris, because, it's true. Growth, it touches each piece, right? A growth mindset, an abundance mindset. Carol Dweck talks about this a lot in her book, is a mindset, a shift of giving, about abundance, like helping others. And you're doing it at the firm. You're also doing it through your podcast. So I want to talk about your podcast, because on your show, you have a lot of interesting guests and you're giving back and talking about a lot of this stuff on your show. Tell us about your podcast, where anybody who's listening to this could find it.
Yeah, so I didn't think I'd ever do a podcast. Not something I thought of, kind of like running an Ironman. But business coaching, right? So we had a marketing workshop, and the guy that was leading the marketing workshop said, "Look, if you do nothing else that I tell you to do today," and they gave us tons of ideas. I can't even tell you the list of ideas, right? But if you do nothing else that I tell you to do, start a podcast. And so I'm like, all right, I guess we're starting a podcast. So, I had no idea what I was going to do first, but gave it some thought, and really, we kind of came up with a vision of the firm, and I didn't know what a vision statement was, and I didn't, had really no idea what a vision statement was. But what it became for me was inspiring positive transformation. I really, I'd love to show you the before and after picture of what I looked like, 2 years ago. But it's like, there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to live life. There's a better way to go about it. And if I can spark a change for just one person, if one person hears my journey and it changes their life, makes their marriage better, makes them a better father, makes them a better leader, then, I've added some value to the world. And that's what I want to do. So that's what the podcast is about. The podcast is called First Light. It's really about, those people who, really take on that morning routine, and they really invest in themselves. And so I've had, we really focus on the Power Five. We focus on that mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial well-being. So I've had spiritual leaders on. I had my church pastor on. I had his wife on recently to talk about relationships. She wrote
Amazing.
a workbook on I Choose You, about relationships. I had a diet nutritionist on. I had business coaches. I've had writing coaches. I've had physical fitness and trainers. And so it's really, hopefully to inspire some positive transformation. People can listen to it, pick up some tips and ideas on how to change their life, and see other people who have changed their lives. And so that's what we spend a lot of time on First Light.
It's amazing how all our brains are trained, isn't it, Chris? We as a lawyer, we're all the same way. It's like we got the outline. I think it's funny. You in a creative way have taken the way we were educated and trained. We have like our framework. You have the power of the fives that you follow, and you've applied it to your marketing. It's brilliant, but it really does give your listeners a little bit of everything, right? They get some of the fitness, nutrition, they get some mindset, they get a little bit of every piece of what you're doing with your mission statement in the firm.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and I've been over a year now. I'm 50 plus episodes in. We started in March of 2024, so we crossed the year. And, a lot of podcasts, and I'll give you credit too, because I know you're there as well. Like 3 or 4 episodes, maybe 6 weeks or something, and they all just die out. And it's really tough to keep it going. And so, all the credit in the world to you. I know you're in the 50s as well. And to put out an episode every week, we've done one a week every week since March of last year. And so, it's, a lot of credit to you.
Thanks so much. So tell us a little bit about the future of the firm. What are some of your goals and your vision for the firm, and where are y'all headed?
We make a big investment in our team here. We do a lot of things like gym stipends because we really promote health and wellness. I can't go out and talk about health and wellness, and I can't go out to the gym and work out and do all those things if I'm not also asking my employees to do it and take care of themselves. So we're really big with that here. Really, I understand that in this business, it's really, but we're a customer service business. Yes, yep. We are attorneys. Yes, we get to go to court and argue cases and all these cool things. But at the end of the day, we're a customer service business. We're no different than a restaurant. In order to provide a high level of customer service, you have to have happy, healthy team members. And so we spend a lot of time, focusing on our team. And because we do that knowing that they're then going to provide a higher level of service for our clients. And at the end of the day, this is what we're doing. We're doing this for our clients, right? Yeah. And so, we've done a lot in technology. We're trying to implement more technology to be more efficient. And to be able to, make our employees' lives easier and more efficient so that they can provide that higher level of customer service. So we're constantly looking at ways to involve, one of the big things that our firm is focused on is AI. We've actually created our own voice AI. And so we have it on the intake side already in some of our markets. So we're testing that out. But also it's going to have the ability to make outbound calls and call our clients to check on them, see how they're doing, check on their care and treatment.
Y'all are developing that yourselves.
We've developed it in-house and have it ourselves. It's already working. We're trying to get it more and more reps so it keeps getting better. We invested in, the Zoom phone system. So we have a contact center, and so we can hear calls in real time. We can grade calls in real time. So really one of the biggest things for us is just tech, really making sure that we're on the cutting edge. One of our core values here is innovation. It's not enough just to be the early adopter. We want to be the innovators. We want to be the industry leaders. We want to be out in front. And so, really trying to grow this as a customer service business, a corporation, and not just a law firm, so that we can provide a high level of customer service and also a high level of environment for our team.
I love it. I saw a great quote this week. People being afraid of technology, but I'm curious about your perspective on this, Chris. I personally believe I'm a huge fan of AI. I'm a huge fan of technology. I like change. I like just all right, get rid of it. Like we changed. Like yesterday, I just decided, I was like, we're getting rid of Zoom Accelerator. I can talk to you some more about that offline, but I was like, I found a new AI system that does call intake, database. I've been monitoring it for about a year, but it is far superior to Zoom Accelerator. And so I was just like, all right, get rid of it. And we're changing. And it's not like rapid, I don't just immediately change, but I'm okay with it. But I strongly believe, irrespective of AI and stuff, Chris, that all the technology is doing is allowing our team to be on the phone more and to give more of that personal and human touch to our customers, to our third parties who interact with us, to our referral sources, our community. And that I think the danger of technology and AI is that some companies, some law firm owners will think this is just going to fix my problem, and shift away from that human element, and they will suffer if they go that route, is my perspective. Do you have any thoughts on that? How do you think about juxtaposing that? Yeah,
100%. I agree with you. I can't disagree with you at all. And that's really what we're using it for. How can we make our employees' lives better so that they can provide a better and a higher level of customer service to our clients? And so that's really where we're trying to use AI. Is, one of the biggest things in cases too is, so the biggest complaint, if you look at bar complaints, most bar complaints are surrounding communication. They couldn't get a hold of their attorney. The attorney never answered the phone. The attorney never called them back. And so we're trying to solve for that, to make sure that that's not our firm, right? That we're providing a lot of communication. But then the other thing is the time it takes to get their case resolved, right? When a client calls you, they want a quick resolution. They don't want to be talking to you 3 years from now because you couldn't move their case along. And so that's all the things that we're trying to solve for. We're trying to make sure that the time on desk is a lot less, so that we're getting clients the resolution that they deserve quicker, and that we're giving them access to information so that they're constantly getting the information that they need every step of the way. And so if we can accomplish those two things, right, we've done great for our clients. We've communicated along the process that there's nothing that they don't know about. They know what's going on in their case. They have all the information that they need. They're educated on all those things, and then also that their case got done timely and for the best result possible. So, we're constantly looking at how do we solve for those two equations.
I love it. I always tell the team here, Chris, the number one complaint with Ethics Council in Louisiana is communication. It's number one. Number two is the attorney stole the client's money. And so, I tell everybody here, just think about that, people. Okay, the client is less mad that you stole their money than if you don't communicate with them. So it's unbelievable. It tracks here. So, Chris, I want to do this session with you. We call it Overruled. I'm going to give you 3 statements. If you agree with it, you're going to sustain. If you disagree, you're going to overrule. And because you're a Florida guy, we have Florida edition today. Are you ready?
I am. Let's do it.
I've not given you any. Sometimes I'll give the guests the questions ahead of time. I'm like, Chris is smart. He's going to be put on the spot. All right, here we go. Number 1, the prettiest beaches in Florida are in the Panhandle.
Oof. Overruled.
Oh, where are they?
I'm partial to the Gulf beaches. I'm, kind of further down Siesta Key, Bradenton Beach, Sarasota Beach, kind of just down the coast. I'm more of the Gulf Beach. All right. Panhandle's the Gulf beaches too, but I like it more in the Tampa Bay area.
Okay, got it. All right, number 2, Florida alligators are less aggressive than the crocodiles.
Oof. Overruled. Crocodiles. Am I right?
Yeah. So you overruled.
Yeah.
All right. And last, Maine lobster are better than the Florida Keys spiny lobster.
Sustained.
Oh, I'm sorry. I put you in a bad spot on that.
Maine lobsters are better.
You had to go against the Florida lobsters, but they
I do love Florida lobsters. We we go out and catch and eat, and it's amazing. But Maine lobsters takes the case.
All right. Chris, I like to ask all our guests, if you could share one superpower of yours. I basically stole this from Ben Glass, so I'm going to be honest, because I love this question. But really what the question means is like that one unique trait, that one unique quality that you believe you possess. We're all different. We're all unique. But that one thing that you think you have that's really helped you succeed and grow as a lawyer and now being the CEO of this rapidly growing law firm.
Well, something that I always thought I had, but apparently I didn't for many years, was discipline. And so in seeing that picture behind me of crossing that finish line, it took a lot of discipline. It took getting up early mornings and going and training. And, I'm trying to do the full Ironman now and same thing. So really being disciplined, making sure that every single day I wake up and follow my routine. That's what's allowed us to grow. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with discipline. We think we're disciplined people, but we tend to fall off. And so, I'm 2+ years now. I haven't had a sip of alcohol in 2+ years. I woke up one morning and decided I was done. I was an everyday drinker. I drank every day of my entire life, and woke up and said I'm done, and haven't looked back. So I think honestly it's changed for me, but I think being disciplined, staying the course, staying true, every day waking up, being consistent, being intentional is really what's changed everything for me, and I think that's kind of what the superpower is now, is that it's allowing us to keep growing, is my consistency, my intentionality, and my discipline.
Love it. Congratulations on the 2 years. It's amazing. And before I let you go, I have to know, what is your favorite book and what are you reading right now?
I think the book that really I think that's kind of I go back to a lot is Same as Ever by Morgan Housel. It really talks about the things that we can control. It goes over the history of all these big events that happen in history and how, really we had no control over those things. And so it really talks about really to focus on the things that are within your control. I think so much, especially right now in the world with the access to information, with social media, with the news, with everything that's going on, you're just bombarded with information, and most of it is outside of our control. And if you get caught up in all those things that you have no control over, it really takes away from the things that you do have control over. So that book really was a kind of a book that I couldn't put down. It was really kind of a game changer for me to realize, let's focus on the things that I can control. If I show up every single day and I focus on the things that that are in my control and that I can make better, wow, what can I do? So that book is phenomenal, and I highly recommend it.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here. It's been a great discussion. I'm just happy that we've become friends and gotten to know each other. Looking forward to getting to know you even better. And for those of you who may need a lawyer in Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi, Georgia, or one of the other 46 states Chris has expanded to in the last 2 years, look him up. Chris Keller, Keller Swan Injury Lawyers, great lawyers, great team, and an incredible firm. It's just been a pleasure having you here, Chris.
Thank you for having me on Overruled.
All right. And thank you to you and everybody for following on with us to another great episode. Enjoy talking to Chris, and we really appreciate all of our listeners being with us. Once again, this is the Overruled podcast brought to you by the Scott Vignair Law Firm. On behalf of my law partner, who is in absentia, Brad Scott, this is David Vignair, and we'll see you next time.
Scott Vignair Injury Attorneys, we fight for the win.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.